Hello, lovelies. I'm Leah Scholl, pastor of Wake Forest Baptist Church. Thank you for tuning in today. This is All Saints Sunday, and I hope you had a chance to look at our Godly Play video and have just a moment to remember so many of our saints of our congregation, and also a moment to reflect on our lives together, to what it feels like when we are together, that little smile in your heart and those moments where we greet one another. As you can tell, I'm in Davis Chapel today, which is a little different, but pleased to be here and grateful to Drew for videoing today. I think we're looking at a tough week ahead, with an election and waiting for election results. And I know that you, Wake Forest Baptist Church, have voted, whether by mail or by in-person voting early, but we still have worries, right? Add that to the fact that the numbers of coronavirus are going up, financial worries too. It's a lot. So please hear these words as encouragement. Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid, for the Lord your God is with you wherever you go. When I first got to Wake Forest Baptist Church, my very first big decision, a decision that impacted the campus and our programming and our partnerships, well, my very first big decision was a bad one. It was a decision that did not take in mind our community. It did not reflect the political temperature of the nation. I didn't know what I didn't know, and just a day or two before the event, I decided to pull out of it. As soon as I pulled the plug, a communications friend, someone who does PR for a living, said, "Whatever you do, don't apologize or admit you did something wrong." She explained that leaders do not apologize or explain themselves. They just do things. That's what our leaders do today, isn't it? When was the last time you heard a leader take responsibility for something? When have you heard a leader say, "I made a mistake"? Jesus was speaking just at a time like this. The empire certainly didn't take responsibilities or ever say that they were sorry. The religious people certainly didn't take responsibility or apologize. So we find Jesus on the Mount, and this is his famous sermon. Unfortunately, as is so often the case, translation of the ancient Greek is sometimes difficult in English. These all too familiar words of the Beatitudes have become so commonplace in our ears, and so we miss the humor of them and the fullness of their meaning. I stumbled across a version and some hints about the translations of it, inspired by a guy named Gary Gagliani at the website Christ's Words. Taking his pointers and a few of my own, I've written my own Beatitudes, and with apologies to Jesus. Fortunate are those crying out for breath, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Fortunate are those mourning, for they are being summoned. Fortunate are those gentle folks, for they shall inherit the ground. Fortunate are those hungering and thirsting for justice, for they shall have their fill. Fortunate are those who forgive debt, for they shall be debt-free. Fortunate are those whose hearts are unencumbered, for they shall perceive God. Fortunate are those who are powerful enough to halt conflict, for they shall be called the children of God. Fortunate are those who are hounded for their perfection, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. As I read each of these saintly qualities, one overarching characteristic comes to mind. And that's a characteristic that we used to value before reality TV, before politicians showed up in their own advertisements, before we began to value winning over being kind. And that characteristic is humility. And humility is the opposite of not saying you're sorry, the opposite of not acknowledging that you're wrong. Humility is freedom from pride or arrogance. It's a modest view of one's own importance. It comes from the root humilis, meaning low. And we don't seem to value it anymore. But I dare say humility is the most important stance we can practice if we hope to get along with our neighbors, if we hope to bring our nation back from this scourge of anger, of fear, and of violence. Humility. Do you want to know how you can have more? Well, you've got to embrace your humanity. Which means embrace that you are, like all of us, a mix of good and a mix of bad. Made in the Spirit of God, but prone to forget it. And you've got to recognize the humanity of others too. This can most easily be done by listening more than we talk. Then finally, it helps to do one more thing that Sally Gully taught me a few years back. It was just after I got married to my beloved Drew, and a few of the church women, including Sally and Ruthie, conspired to throw me a wedding shower. And honestly, it was a bit more like a bachelorette party with all the innuendos. On one Wednesday night when we were supposed to be having church, we played a few games, had a little toast, and then Sally laid on me her advice for a happy marriage, which Sally knew about, having been married to her sweetie Marcus for well more than 50 years. She said, "There's 3 little words that will save your marriage." I know, you're thinking the 3 little words are, "I love you," but that just won't cut it. The 3 little words are, "Maybe you're right." Now, mind you, Sally always said this with a little snicker because "maybe you're right" automatically comes with a little "maybe you're not right." But until we're willing to entertain the idea that maybe we're wrong, we won't be right. Because our humanity is defined by growth. And in this moment, we are not perfect. And none of our ideas or our thoughts are fully formed. There is no person in the world with whom we will agree at all times, and very few will agree with most of the time. But if we live into the grace of "maybe you're right," well, maybe we can love each other better. Amen? Amen.